All right, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so excited, Sarah, that you're here. We're talking about just what quote unquote balance looks like with kids, with our families, like kind of finding this rhythm. And especially in light of everything that's going on right now, I think that this is such an important conversation to have. And I'm just super grateful that you wanted to jump on and have this conversation with me. Before we get into like all of the good stuff that we're going to talk about, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and tell them a little bit more about what you do and where people can connect with you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Sarah Bradshaw. I live and work in the DC area. I'm married to Buck, and we have 2 children. London is 4, Edmund is about 14 months. I'm a full-time wedding photographer, and I've run my business this is my 13th wedding season. So I've been doing this for a long time, since pre living in DC, before I met my husband, and I've seen it through now parenting 2 children. So my business has been through a lot of different seasons, and I'm still working full time, and it's wonderful and crazy all at the same time. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website, sarahbradshaw.com. Follow me on Instagram, Sarah Bradshaw Photo. And yeah, I love connecting with new people.
I love it. Awesome. So good. So you have, first of all, have had such an incredible career as a photographer. That's amazing. I feel like I like lots of like snaps and claps and hand praise emojis and all the things for you for that. Let's talk. I know for this, we wanted to specifically like zero in on what life has been like now that you have 2 children and you're balancing this growing business, like that's, continuing to grow, balancing your clients, balancing being a mama to those 2 children. What has some of that journey like looked like for you since London and now with Edmund too?
Yeah. It's definitely changed a lot. I think that like the big key for us has always been trying to be as open-handed and flexible as possible with what schedules are. I'm not normally a morning person, but about 8 months ago now, we decided that I would shift my schedule. So I used to have, when we just had London, before Edmund was born, I worked 3 days a week, and I had a nanny 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. She worked just part-time for us 3 days, and it was a wonderful situation. She would often take London to her house instead of being at our house. And I just had quiet and I could do my meetings, and it was great. Once Edmund joined, we found that just wasn't working as well for our family. So we just got really creative and made some shifts, and we have a different nanny who now comes 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. 4 days a week. And I sit down to my desk by 6:30 in the morning. My husband takes the morning routine with the kids, and then I'm off in time to put them down for their afternoon naps. And it's worked out really well for us. So the rhythm, it's so interesting. We talk about balance, and I really chase against the idea of work-life balance, because the word balance itself implies equal weight on 2 different things. So you think of like a seesaw, right? So if something's heavier, then the one side is lower than the other. And if you want to balance that, you have to have equal weight on both sides. And the truth of the matter is, we're not like 50% business owner, 50% mom. I'm like 100% a mom, 100% a wife, 100% a friend, 100% a business owner. I don't ever cease in any of those. So I like the idea of work-life rhythm instead. I think of it more like a dance than balancing on a seesaw, because there are times where I am 100% dedicated to my clients above anything else. On a wedding day, I'm there. Totally and entirely there with them. I can't be a 100% mom. I'm not even present in the house. But then when I'm with my children, I also need to be 100% present there and not distracted by, a client call unless there's some crazy emergency that happens.
Right. No, I think that that's such a great way to think about it. And I know a couple of weeks ago, Carrie came on for our coffee chat, and we were talking about balancing your side hustle and like with a full-time job and like what that means. And she brought up something similar of like, it is rhythm. Like there's no way I can not give things to my full-time job when I need to work on my side hustle. Like I have to find a way to be able to navigate both sides of me. And I think about it in this same sense too. Like we're 100% mama and we're 100% business owner, 100% wife. So how can we create rhythm, you know, and I think it's great that you guys have been flexible and changed things up as your family has grown and as the family dynamic has changed. And I'm sure what you're doing now might not be what you're doing in a year from now. Like, we just have to be flexible. We actually talked, this wasn't one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but we talked about this before we went live, and I would love for you to touch on it. You were talking about what your mom would talk about in terms of plan, like having that plan and what does that look like and how to be flexible. Would you mind like sharing that bit of wisdom with us now?
Yeah. So I'm the oldest of 9 kids. We were all homeschooled. My parents are total rock stars, and there were 11 of us in an 1,800 square foot house for the majority of my upbringing. So can't even imagine that now. I feel like we're bursting at the seams at like 1,600 square feet. I'm like, this is not enough room. But my mom had to be super rigid in planning a schedule. But she always said the beauty of a plan is flexibility. You write the plan, you design a schedule, you set your intentions and build out your calendar so that you know where you can bend, where you can flex. I love this idea from Michael Hyatt. I just finished his book. I lost the name of the book. What's it called? Free to Focus. Thanks. My husband's sitting in the living room. Free to Focus. And he talks about how we tend to think of energy and focus as unlimited, but it's not. Our time has limited capacity, and our focus and energy has limited capacity as well. Our energy is renewable and our time is not. But there are lots of other things, like you can make more money, you can't make more time. You can create more energy, but it requires rest and investment. So trying to think well about, if you only have a certain amount of time and you have limited stores of energy, how do you think well about using those things so you don't overtax the time and drain the energy from things that are important? So a lot of this conversation about work-life balance or rhythm, parenting, like being a mom who also runs a business, so much of it is about living within priorities and making sure that the things that are most important stay most important. And it's about really good and strong, clear communication between you and your support system. So my husband's a support system, friends are support systems. We have a part-time nanny who's a support system. Other fellow business owners who are my cheerleaders who are a support system, and just clear communication in all of those.
Yeah, no, that's great. What are some things, whether it be tactical, whether it be mindset, but what are some things that have helped you find a healthy rhythm in specifically balancing the parenting side with the business owner side?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think a few things that have been really key for us. I think the most important thing for us has been the fact that my husband and I view each other as equal teammates and equal contributors. So when we first got married, I think I thought of his salary as like his money and my salary as my money, or his time is more important. And I would sometimes say like, thanks for letting me go to work today. And I just realized I had to stop myself from saying that, because I was intending to thank him for being my teammate. But what I was subconsciously doing was belittling my work investment. And he's the one who corrected me on that. You know, it's like, we together are going to work, even if you're staying at home. We together do the laundry. We together wash the dishes. We together make decisions for our family. So having that equal teammate mindset has been hugely helpful for us, because then I'm able to actually think through boundaries and priorities well. And so because we have that equal teammate mindset, we strategize together, both for his work, for my work, and for our children and parenting. We do yearly planning. We do weekly check-ins for our schedule and our life. We just make sure we're regularly talking about things with each other, over communicating.
Yeah, no, over communicating, I think, is huge. I feel like, I mean, any marital argument probably comes back to like lack of communication. Let's like be.
And every sitcom that's ever been made, you know, like I can't tell you the number of times I'm watching TV and I'm like, if they would just talk to each other, we would not be sitting here watching this.
I feel like I say that every episode of The Bachelor. I'm like, why won't they just talk? It drives me crazy.
Just use your words.
So true. So true. So definitely in over communicating. What are some maybe more tactical things that you started doing, whether it was when London was born or maybe more recently, with like this recent schedule with London and Edmund that you maybe just can't live without? Like you're like, these are just great resources or tools or just things that you guys are doing as a family when it comes to parenting and running the business.
Yeah. So we've gone back to paper calendars.
Okay.
That's been one thing for us. Just having a calendar that we can all see has been really helpful. We do weekly meal planning. So even though I do most of the cooking, Buck does most of the dishes, if there's a night where things get crazy, I'm like, it's hanging on the wall. He's like, do you want me to step and make dinner tonight? I'm like, that would be great. There it is,
There it is.
So that's really helpful. I know everyone has, parenting is so delicate.
Right.
So parenting decisions are so very personal and delicate, but Absolutely. We have both made the decision early on. We were very unified in this, but it was important for us that our children were capable and comfortable and confident without us. So we've been very consistent with trying to teach them both independent play, having like London does room time. We haven't started this with Edmund yet, but a little bit, but not as much as we did with London with teaching. We do like playpen time and the pack and play, just making sure that they are able to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, and that they are really, we kind of don't allow them to have separation anxiety. I don't know, that's maybe a little weird to say, but lots of affirmation, you're fine, and then we'll walk away, and always come back. But that's helpful because we can leave them with most babysitters. We've been pretty scheduled with them for nap times and for night times. So doing lots of sleep training just so that we are able to live within a rhythm well. So we can have time to prioritize our marriage. We can have time to do the work that we need to do. And then when we're with them, we get to just enjoy being with them.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great advice. And I know I probably should have disclaimed it at the beginning, like parenting is very sensitive and we want to, we all want to make the best decisions for our children and for our family. And I think that though goes into the rhythm will look different for every family. So we can learn from one another and be able to say, oh, this is a great tip that so-and-so is doing, and then try to see how it applies, for your own family. So Micah is almost 2. And when he dropped his morning nap, Matt and I were like in shock. Like we work from home with him and we do not have childcare. And so we were both like, no. Like we can't, like this is like, we need this time. Like what's going on? So Matt actually started implementing rest time with him in the mornings during when morning nap time was. And we tell him like, okay, Micah, it's rest time. Like what toys do you want to take? We keep all the lights on, so it doesn't confuse him with, am I sleeping? Am I playing? Like, what am I doing? And he will last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour in his crib, babbling happily, playing with his toys. And honestly, it's such a great like mental break for us, for whoever is the on parent, on that given day, since we alternate schedules with him, to have that space, whether it's logging in to get a couple of work things done or just having that break to do a few things around the house. It's been really, really wonderful for us to like find that rhythm in our day with him.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to also have friends and who are a support system that you can, if you are able to have friends who have children about the same age and do childcare swaps. I learned very quickly that that's not a super helpful thing for me. And we instead made the decision to pay for childcare instead of swapping. But I have so many other friends who that works super well for them. That is one of the big ways that they're able to keep up this rhythm is that they'll bring 2 extra children to their home 2 or 3 days a week, and then their children go to somebody else's home a couple of days a week. And it just is a really great way for them, for 2 families to be able to get all of the things done that need to be done.
Yeah. And that goes, that like brings up another point too, of not being afraid to use your support system. Like, I feel like when I became a mom, there were moments where I felt like I was on an island by myself. And then I realized like, okay, I'm kind of doing this to myself, right? Like I would either be overwhelmed with resources like social media and like different blogs and things like made me freak out of like, there's so many decisions to make and like, am I doing this right? And like, what's the best sleep training routine? Like there were so many things that it kind of made me like close in a little bit more. And I realized that I needed to utilize that close support system. So of course, my husband, our friends, our parents, like I needed to be able to ask for help or just have them to lean on. Because it can feel like we're on an island by ourselves, especially when we have the business side of it too.
Yeah. And that is where I think it's so important to have like strong communication with your closest support system. So with your spouse, if you don't have a spouse, with someone else who is like your close support, parents, siblings, family. For Buck and I, it has been really important and helpful for us to, again, over communicate. But then also, once you make a decision, put blinders on, because it honestly, there's so many people who have so many strong opinions. Yes. And we've just had to come to the point where we're like, we pray through these decisions, we make these decisions before the Lord, and it's like, it's on our conscience, right, whether or not we're doing the right thing, and it's really no one else's business.
Yeah.
So right. you just have to do what's right, but within your own conscience and what's best for your children. And I think we just make sure that we are, again, like we have weekly check-ins about things, and then we just try to know our children. London's needs are different than Edmund's, so our schedule needs are a little different than they were when London was Edmund's age.
Right.
It's like watching and learning your children, knowing your spouse. Buck and I both, we laugh at this, but I think that we both consider our marriage more high need, in the sense that we need a lot of time together as a couple to feel like we are thriving, which means we can't have someone over at our house every single night a week. We need downtime, just the two of us. There are some couples who are really high capacity relationally, and we're just not, and that's okay. We do need to extend ourselves some for the sake of serving other people, but we have to be careful about how much we do that, because we can very easily get into like a not good place.
Right.
So again, it's like living within your priorities. Like our priority is a strong marriage. Our priority is like dedicated parenting and thriving within business and not hitting overwhelm or burnout. So because those are our priorities, those are the decisions that we have to make decisions that fit with those.
And I love the permission slip to just feel like we can all confidently step into, like, this is the rhythm that we are setting for our family. And if you can sleep at night, like if you feel good, if your family is thriving like in that environment, then like that's the best decision for your family. Like it doesn't matter what a blog says, it doesn't matter what is going on Facebook or anything like that. Like we can just make that decision for our kids and for, our spouse, our significant other.
Because literally any blog that you read that has a strong opinion piece about some decision or topic, you will be able to find a dozen blogs that have equally strong supporting evidence that are the opposite of what you just read.
Yes. That's life right now.
Maddening. It is life right now.
It's crazy. So just let me caveat for a minute. Then I want to ask specifically on like the business side, since you mentioned your shortened work schedule, like throughout I think you said 6:30 to 1:30, 4 days a week. Have you found, just because I'm thinking about on like the client end, since the majority of your business is client focused with your weddings and couples, have you found that to be stressful? Is that kind of, again, going back to communicating that very openly with your clients so they know when they can reach you via email, phone calls, engagement sessions and things like that? Or how has that worked for you?
It's actually worked out beautifully. I have a really exhaustive autoresponder that is like set in Gmail. You've seen it, God. It's like a little crazy. But it's written, and my clients will actually call me out if they see me on email outside of those hours. It's great because I'm just like, here are my hours, here's how I work, here's what my priorities are. You're super important to me, but so is my family. So it's just been really helpful. Most of my engagement sessions are sunrise anyway. So starting work so early means I never have to worry about finding a babysitter for sunrise sessions or worrying if Buck is not going to make it into work on time. And then he does have a pretty flexible schedule. So if I do occasionally need to have a networking meeting or a client meeting or a sunset engagement session, he's usually able to accommodate that in the schedule as long as we have a couple weeks heads up on that. or otherwise I'll just find a babysitter or do a kid swap with a friend. So it does work out pretty well. We both need to have some flexibility within that, but we do our best to keep within my morning hours.
Yeah. Is that something that you're upfront with your clients about from the get-go, or is that just something they'll see, you know, after they've potentially booked you, just like in that autoresponder? And by that point, they already love you, they're already excited to work with you, and that's just like kind of a part of the Sarah Bradshaw experience, for lack of a better way to say that.
Yeah, I don't really talk about it necessarily with them. They just know that they're going to get, I think in my autoresponder, I do say that if you email me after noon on Friday, I won't be checking my email again until Tuesday. And if I have a quiet weekend and I'm not working and I'm like, oh, the kids are all down for a nap on Monday and I've done all my chores, so I'm just going to work on some emails, I'll schedule them to go out early the next morning on Tuesday morning, to try to honor that. So my clients they expect that I'm not going to be working Mondays, but they do know that because of the autoresponder, if they've ever read it, they know that I'm not going to be emailing on weekends.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like I've gotten a lot of questions on my end with some of my coaching clients who are working more on finding that rhythm and being more structured with that work schedule. So I'm thinking about a question that I get a lot, and I'd love to get like your feedback. How do you communicate that, I guess, without fear that they will, you know, balk at, oh, she's not there for me 5 days a week, you know, 24/7. I feel like we're in a society where it's like, give me this, give it to me right now, you know, so people will work all day long with the Gmail tab open the whole time, you know, and I used to do that. I don't do that anymore, but I was one of those. I was the one in the Target line holding all the things, trying to respond to the email on my phone, like not helpful, not good rhythm for my business, not helpful for my clients, because I'm not really being able to focus on what they need. So do you have any advice for someone who has fears of kind of letting go of some of that control and really creating that structure?
Well, you know, the best tool that I know for that is actually comes from the book. It's a Brené Brown book called Rising Strong. And in that, she talks about the concept of confabulation, which is a lie truthfully told, or it's something where it's an untruth that you tell yourself in a convincing way. And you just start asking the question, what story am I telling myself right now? So if that is a fear to let go of the control of your inbox, what story are you telling yourself? What story are you telling yourself about how your clients are going to respond? And then just actually take the time to write out what you think is going to happen if you change your schedule, and ask yourself, is this actually true? So once you verbalize those fears, you'll often find that they actually have no ground. I have not been super, so I over communicate with my clients. I do try to do the best that I can to, like, after they sign a contract, I jump on let's start talking about the engagement session scheduling before they inquire about, okay, so when do we schedule the engagement session? Mm-hmm. I try to keep a step ahead of them at all times. But when it comes to the always being connected or always being accessible, I do ask myself, okay, so if I remove that accessibility, what story am I telling myself about what my clients are going to say? And if the story I'm telling myself is, well, they're going to reject me, they're going to think I'm not a hard worker, well, what evidence do I have for that? I don't have any evidence.
Right.
They've never given me an indication that they are going to think that. And if they do, I think it's just really, I have had a couple of clients push back on me before, but for that, it's just, I've chosen to stop apologizing. I'm sorry for taking so long to respond. Instead, rephrase it. Thank you for your patience. There are a lot of different rephrasing templates out there that you can find. Just Google apologetic rephrasing and just learn how to communicate differently with your client. Like, it actually wasn't wrong for me to not respond to them on a Monday. If their wedding is not, if they're not emailing about something urgent, it can wait until Tuesday, and that's okay. That's me choosing to prioritize my family above my clients. And that's on a Monday, that's a good thing for me.
Yeah. No,
I don't know if that answers your question at all.
No, you did. It was so great. And I'm going to make sure we link that book and the Michael Hyatt one that you mentioned earlier. But I've read that book by Brené Brown, and I love it. And I think that that's such a great way to walk through that process of, okay, well, what am I really afraid of? Like, why does this feel like life or death right now when it's probably not? Like, it's,
Yeah. so often it's just imposter syndrome, or it's just fear of rejection. And fear is a really bad place to, it's a bad motivator or an unhelpful motivator for decision making.
Yeah.
You don't usually make wise decisions when their decisions are made from fear.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So to wrap it all up then, if we were actually sitting down for coffee and we had somebody who was saying like, listen, I'm struggling to find that rhythm. What is one thing that you would just really encourage them that they could start doing right now to find better rhythm when balancing parenting and their business?
So start by encouraging them to take some time to journal. Either get up early before the kids are up, or do it during nap time or after everyone's in bed at night, and just take time to journal about the things that are most important. I have found it most helpful to actually, this is going to sound a little crazy, but I write my eulogy. I think about like, what do I want said of me when I die at the age of 95? Or if I'm 80 years old, looking back on my life, what are the things that I want to be highlighted? And then you start thinking about, okay, so what decisions am I making today that are building into that? And what decisions am I making today that are pulling away from that? And that seems really high level, like really far out and abstract to think about. But if I want my kids when they're teenagers, I want to be the house where everyone else, all of their friends want to be at. I want to have dinner conversations where they want to sit down and talk to their parents about what happened at school when they're in high school. Okay, so if that's the kind of relationship that I want, that's the kind of life that I want to build, then how do I need to be available for my preschooler and toddler now? How do I want to set up financially so that at that point I'm home every night for dinner? Right. It just helps to make those decisions if you actually sit down and you journal about what you want long term, and then what are your priorities today that are going to help you get there? And then for all these decisions that we're making about setting boundaries for clients, like, do I want my kids to remember me as like stressed and always on my phone saying one more minute for 10 minutes? Mm-hmm. Or do I want them to remember a mom who like was relaxed at the dinner table and not rushing through dinner because they're like, okay, I need you to get to bed right now because I've got 4 hours more of work I have to do tonight. So once you set those things, set those things in place, it's really, it's not easy, but it's simple to then work really hard during the times you do work, and then stop work when it's time to be with your children or with your husband. Not easy, but it is more simple because you have the long-term view kind of holding you accountable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, especially when we're looking at the current day-to-day and feeling stressed out with like, well, how can I do all of this? Well, let's take a step back, look at the long-term vision, understand where we want to be so that then we can find pockets of rhythm within our current reality. So I think that's so helpful.
The other thing is actually something my pediatrician says, that when looking at nutrition, think about a kid's nutrition over the course of a week, not over the course of a day or a meal. And I think about that same thing when it comes to like relational investment. Think about it over the course of a week, not the course of a day. Because there are going to be days when you're just not there. Like they're just busier days and you're going to be frazzled and they're going to have chicken nuggets and mac and cheese again for like the third night in a row. And that's okay. There are some seasons that are like that. Give yourself grace for that. You want to think about what you're characterized by and not what you are in the specific moment. If you keep making the same bad choices in every single moment, or maybe unwise choices in every single moment, that will become something you're characterized by. But a one-off is not going to ruin anyone.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And even for my son eating, I'm like, no, I don't need to feel as bad about one meal.
Right? I was like, my doctor said it. It's totally fine.
It works for our family life. No, it's so good. We all have those days. So we just need to let those days happen if they happen. Yeah. So This was great, Sarah. Thank you so much. I'll make sure we link your website and your Instagram in the description so that people can connect with you further. I also will get the links for those 2 books that we mentioned in case anyone wants to dig into those further. And I just so appreciate you sharing some of this wisdom with us and like taking the time to pour into us a little bit today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Kat.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, I will see y'all next week.